Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you hear the fire alarm?
It must be 10 o'clock.
It is. It's 10 o'clock somewhere. The tornado alarm, well, and we've kind of used to that lately.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of tornado action or threats. So even last night was bad. Good morning, everyone. The alarm is off. We can begin. I like this topic that we're doing today because it's all about the look. And the look sometimes people think is in place just for neatness, but there's so much more to it. So we're going to go through some different ways to think about the look and image and what you're projecting to your guests and during this. And I'm excited about it. So page down and the Four Cornerstones. All right, the Four Cornerstones, we're going to just recap that because we know that these four things have to be in place for a guest to want to return. And you've heard this a million times, I'm sure, but it always is worthy of another look. So service, product, atmosphere, and sanitation. And these need to be judged on a daily basis. And if you look at the first four letters, S-P-A-S, the acronym is SPAs, creating that Zen-like, spa-like experience for the guest. I can tell you, even as a busy woman, as all of you are, when I get to the salon, I need these four things to be in place so I can escape a little bit. You know, I was raised in the generation of Calgon, take me away. And many people in the audience probably don't know what that is. But
no, pretty much.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, Calgon, it was that busy woman that, like, oh my gosh, I just want
that was back then.
Yeah,
how much business it is now.
I want 5 seconds to myself, and it was a bath soak, and she would go in there and veg out. Salons can create that. They can let it be the oasis for their guests, but these four things have to be in place for that to be accomplished.
The thing that I think about with spas is that it's not an accident when you create a spa environment. It's not an accident when the four cornerstones are in place. It has to be intentional. It has to be something that's part of the process of the business. And so you're not accidentally going to give great service. You may sometimes, but you can't consistently, over time, give proper service without it being intentional. Same with product, your finished product. It's not just the product that's on the shelves. It's the product of the experience that a person has when they visit your salon. It's what they walk out with, the way they feel about themselves is really your product. And atmosphere and sanitation, we know that those aren't by accident. And if they are, it can be scary.
Well, and if you think about, I was listening to a message this morning on the way in, and it's people will not always remember the words that you say, but they'll remember how they felt in your presence.
Absolutely.
Right?
100% agree.
Good.
And that's also intentional.
Yes. I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go. So the questions. What is it like to do business with us? For us to examine the look of the business or the feel of the business, we have to examine what it's like to do business with us. I mean, we just do business, but we don't know how people judge that. So what's the look of our business, the feel, the experience from start to finish, and the flow? Is it smooth or choppy? And I'm going to give you some examples of that in a moment. And the people, they all affect the look of the business, this whole part. So the look must complement our vision. So if you think about Starbucks, whether it's the scent or how they set up or how they say, see you at the window, all of that complements the vision that they're trying to create. Does everything that we're doing complement our vision? And what is our greeting like? And what is it like to schedule with us? And what is it like to shop with us? And certainly, what is it like to just sit in a chair and feel the energy of the business? And it must complement what we're trying to do.
To give you an example from Starbucks, there was a period of time where Starbucks was doing breakfast sandwiches, and it was ruining the user experience. It was ruining the atmosphere that Starbucks was trying to create, because if the cheese wasn't just right on the breakfast sandwich, it would melt and then it would burn in the ovens that they warmed these in. And so Howard Schultz totally took away breakfast sandwiches from their menu because of that. That's how committed that they were to when a guest walked into a Starbucks, they needed to smell coffee. They needed to smell that richness, not burnt cheese. And so even though it was a moneymaker.
So at our house, we don't have a Starbucks experience.
We don't have a stove. So anyway, they took it away until they could guarantee that they could come back and never have that be the equation. And so it was gone for at least a year, if not more. And then when they found a way to do it, they brought that back.
Okay, that makes sense.
So what are some things like that could happen in the salon?
Great example. Well, it could be the check-in and check-out. It could be wrong. Maybe we say, oh, look, we're going to do a check-in station and a check-out station, or we're going to have our guests reschedule on the technology, and the guest feels like, yeah, that's efficient, but it's not connection.
And yet here's another way. Think about everything that's being done in social media right now. Does your social media or your team's social media complement the vision?
That's a better
Does
example.
it speak to the user experience you want them to have?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But
sometimes
more importantly,
it threatens it.
It's completely different from person to person to person. And yet your salon is not different from person to person. So how do we externally look the same way that we work so hard to internally look?
Good. That's a better example. All right, so let's talk about the look. Of course, the look is the lighting and the colors that you choose, because is it giving the guest feeling comfortable? Now, I can tell you when a place needs painted, it creates tension for me because the business starts to look tired. So when we look at...
You know what, better said, it creates tension for me when a place needs painting.
Like our place.
Yeah, because you export the tension.
Thank you. Thank you. That wasn't necessary. So the placement of things, where is things? No, that was not grammatically correct. Where are things in the business? The resting position of the style house, how does the wash house look, the color bar, the station's front desk, the keeping room. I added that yesterday.
The keeping room.
Well, the keeping room is...
Is that where you keep stuff
No,
out of
the keeping room is another way to say this is where people gather. The keeping room. It's a new expression in house design, not a new one.
So is that the salon
It could
floor?
be. Well, it
because
could
you keep people, they gather on the salon.
No, but it could be where they're sitting as their hair is processing. The keeping room, where people are gathering over here and creating connection amongst themselves. The entrance and exit, did you just roll your eyes? And the powder room, all these have to have a look and a standard. And what is that? And you're going to understand where we're going with this in just a second. The feel is what do you want said? What are the adjectives that you want people to feel in your presence? Is it relaxing, calming, soothing, specialized? It wants to feel very natural, easy to do business with. So if we have the wrong music or it's not right, I always go back to the Hard Rock Hotel. We stayed there one time and it was never going to happen for us again. And to have Hard Rock when you get out of the car, when you get in to register, hard acid rock on the elevator, Hard Rock walking down the hotel room corridor, and we got in our room and we looked at each other and said, what was that? We didn't fit that profile.
No.
And so if we ever have the wrong music playing or wrong things in place, it's not going to create these relaxing, calming, soothing. Now, in all fairness, the hotel, Hard Rock Hotel, would never want these to be their adjectives said about them. Right?
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Nor with the W.
No. They want it to be, here we go, let's create a party. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's going to be different. What do you want said about your business? And make sure you're consistent with that you know what that's supposed to be. And like some people will do a dance party on Friday. I understand creating theme moments in the business, but what does your guest want from their salon experience? And that's key on that.
Well, to give you a contrast to the Hard Rock experience, I would take you to the Hotel Monaco, where if you check in by yourself, they offer you a fish to take to your room and stay with you so that you're not alone. That's somebody that wants relaxed, calming, soothing, friendship.
Do you get to keep the fish?
No, just while you're there.
The fish is your pet.
The fish is your companion.
Okay, they thought of that. That's cute.
Different.
It is. All right, so the experience from start to finish, what does it feel like? Because this affects the look too. So from start to finish, the greeting to the farewell, the professional pass off.
There's an echo.
We're getting an echo. Are you getting it, Brian?
Yep.
The feel, the commitment, the urgency, and they want to know. I mean, are we alert? Are we ready to go? And are they in great hands? Not just technically, but are they in great service hands? Now, let's go to this, and this is all going to start coming together. So the flow of the business, smooth or choppy, and I want to give you a nurse example. I had to, I was slicing onions last week, and
choppy.
I know, I was chopping onions. Well, it was enough that it needed and required stitches. Okay.
You chopped your finger, not your onions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get to the emergent care, whatever it's called, and I walk in and the nurse comes in. Now this nurse is knowledgeable, very knowledgeable, but my goodness, I've never seen choppier service. It was how she opened a cabinet door, how she closed a drawer, how she was looking for things, how she was placing out the prep tray for the doctor to suture. Everything. What she almost tripped a couple times. She was bumping into me with the blood pressure cuff. I was so nervous watching her because it's not as if she didn't have knowledge, but she didn't know how to deliver her service smooth. It was choppy like high tide coming in. And I was looking at her, I almost laughed a couple times. If I would have been with anyone, if you would have been there, we would have started laughing, or even if Chrissy was there, because it was a nuisance. And I thought, oh my gosh, just breathe for a second. And I don't know if she was busy or if that's just how she works. At one point, she opened a drawer and there was no room for these paper towels or whatever. And so she just shoved them in there. They didn't fit, but she was going to get them in there and make them work. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the flow of the business. Is the transition easy and smooth? If you check into a Ritz-Carlton, they've made that seamless. Mm-hmm. Even they make eye contact with the not the valet, the bellman, and he's going to take you to they don't have to say next or John over here please. They do it all with eye contact, so the guest just walks through the business with ease. That wasn't the case with this nurse at all. And you can see a hairdresser that can do it. You can see a waitress that can do it, a hostess that can do it with ease, and you can see others that are absolutely a mess the entire time they're serving. This affects the look of the business. And are we smooth or are we choppy? And we have to put systems in place that we teach people how to serve, but we need to teach them to serve with style. And style means it's almost seamless.
Well, and also we need to realize that we can do it right sometimes and sometimes not. You're never done. If your goal is to have elegant 5-star service, if your goal is to be smooth rather than choppy, you're going to find that there's times where you execute perfectly, where everybody's on. And then there's times where people just kind of miss the target. We do as well.
Well, I'll give you an example. I think when a salon doesn't have enough of an entrance for the guest to walk in the business, it seems jammed up right away, and the guest doesn't know what to do. To have a little bit of opening for them to come in. Even in a restaurant, we went to Chili's last week, and the young hostess staff was too young to serve. It might not be a hard position at the restaurant, but it's the first impression, and it's the one that guides them through. It's the one that needs to make eye contact. It's the one that starts the experience. I think Chili's has created a nice reputation, meaning menu, you can count on what you're going to get, selection, the atmosphere. Sanitation is questionable, in my opinion, with concrete floors and the way they muck them up. But as far as the people, that's where I feel like they're missing sometimes, is they don't know how to connect the dots between the front of the house hostess staff and the front of the house service staff. They struggle with that.
You know, I'm sure if you were to take a list of words that speakers are supposed to avoid, I would think muck would be on the list.
Okay, did I say muck?
You said muck.
Sorry, that.
So we need to.
Is that a bad word?
No, but if you mispronounce it,
okay,
it's not very good.
All right. So now let's go to the people. So when we look at the people, we're looking at how do they look? What is the image? Because this affects the entire look of the business. The image, some people are like, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is it's part of the snapshot of the business. And the people have to show and demonstrate the pride they have for their craft and the salon. What are you laughing at?
Just you.
Okay. The conversations that they're having and what the guests are witnessing. The commitment, is it felt by the staff? And then you take a look at the last one, which is team respect. We went out to dinner for our anniversary last week.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great server.
We really did.
And he was training someone, and when they delivered the plate, he just took it away and he said, excuse us for a moment, and he brought it back differently. He said, you needed more room to be able to cut your entree. But he was absolutely professional.
He's a professional server versus just a server at a restaurant.
Yeah, he really knew.
Right, I mean, he was doing that for a living. He was a pro at it.
Yeah.
And very good.
And you can tell the difference immediately. So, and also, what is the team respect? How do they carry themselves? How do they look? And how does it feel to watch them work in the salon together? Just like watching a team in a dining room work together, or watching a team in a doctor's office work together. That affects the entire look of the business.
You know, I also, this slide, the image on this slide, to me fits perfectly with what we're talking about here.
Because he looks the part.
He looks the part of a barber. And he is, the image is right.
Yeah.
For a barber. And I think that the pride that you can see there, certainly we know him personally, but even if you didn't, even if you've never met him, you can tell. That's how a barber, in our mind's eye of a barber shop or a barber, that's the way their image would be portrayed, with the jacket all buttoned up, looking great, looking confident.
Look at his eyebrows. He means it.
And I think it's important. And so if we were to do that same kind of a lineup in our salons,
who would we put in that photo?
Who would we put in a, we do men's hair. Do we have someone, not that looks like this wonderful gentleman, but do we look the part? Is there, there have been times, honestly, in my career where I didn't look the part. We just have to, it's something that's constantly needs to be reviewed.
Yeah, you're a little long right here.
I know, a little too much white.
Yes, but it looks good, but yeah. All right, here we go. Now, grand opening mentality. I am always amazed at how great businesses look when they open. Why is it that we lose that edge after we open a business? How do we protect that? And it takes a village of people to do that, to keep the business looking fresh. And you have to be inspecting it all the time, because grand opening mentality is a commitment, because we're so excited to bring this new concept. Like, we're opening, here we go, everyone in your places, please. And when you look at grand opening,
well, it's more than a mentality. It's also grand opening energy.
Yeah, that's right.
Grand opening
I'm glad you said
staffing.
that.
It's a mentality because you have to make the commitment to have all of those things in place. It's grand opening spas.
Mm-hmm.
It's grand opening service, product, atmosphere, sanitation.
Well, during a grand opening, you would never forget to turn the lights on. You would never forget to turn the music on. You wouldn't forget to have your scent machines or whatever you're using for scent. People would look their best. They would take extra time getting ready that morning, right? Because of the energy and the commitment. Now you've got to keep that. And so when businesses say, why have we lost our edge? Usually it's because we got comfortable. And when we get comfortable, we get foolish. And we have to be careful not to put the blinders on and realize we have to be committed to that kind of standard, that energy, that commitment, that service, that hospitality every day to keep a guest. Because someone else is going to grand open.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Competition is going to find a way to do it better. We have to be able to out Domino's if we're opening a pizza place.
Well, and the thing that's important about this is it is that energy, it is that look, it is that intentionality that creates word-of-mouth advertising, which is always going to be the best way to build a new business. And somebody is talking about someone within our sector. In your community, they're talking about a salon. Someone's talking about a salon,
And you want to
a
make that
hairdresser.
list.
And are you going to be on the list? Are you going to be the one that they talked about?
That's right.
And again, it's not going to happen by accident. It starts with a thought process and a commitment and a daily check.
Right. Okay. So it's all about the details and everything has its place. I was giving examples and people are always saying, well, how do you look at that? I think that when you think about how everything has its place, I get frustrated when I go to the school sometimes because sometimes a storage closet becomes a junk closet versus a storage closet. Everything has to be in place for the business to work with better efficiencies. All right, so how do I want to say this? And I'm going to do a little bit more of it later on. But when you think about the efficiencies, ooh, I need color. Can you tell? Yeah, I already made a color appointment. So when you look at putting things in place, it's to put the efficiencies to make the efficiencies better. For example, the front desk has everything in its place, so their efficiencies are better. The color bar, things are in place to maximize efficiencies. The wash house, things are in place for the efficiencies. The check-in and check-out procedure, the way the guest schedules. If you do online scheduling, everything has its place to make the efficiencies better, not harder. And the efficiencies have to be easy to use. It could be the greatest system, but if no one uses it, it's a who cares or why bother. But you put things in place to make the business. For example, we spend a lot of time on take-home in our salons. This is an example where it needs to be so shoppable. And not just because it needs to look great, it's because it's the last part of the service, and that's going to improve the efficiencies of our professional recommendation. Did that tie together all right? So when I walk up to the front, it's not hard for me to find a product. It's not difficult for me to give the recommendation. You can see the promos that were featured because they are easy and they flow nicely on our way up to the front. It improves the efficiencies. So it makes us look better while we're giving the professional recommendation. So whatever products we're using at the station, what we're using in the wash house, all that supports the professional recommendation, and the look does that.
Yeah, and it's the difference between smooth and choppy.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so let's go. Are we ready? Open the doors. I mean, we wouldn't, that last inspection, here's another example. Grand opening day, how much time are you there? How much time are you there in advance? What time do you arrive on grand opening day? Yet we've got people still opening the businesses with their guests. That's not doable, and it doesn't make sense. So I'm not making any sense right now. Steve's going to show a video, right?
Yes. This is a video. Oh, let's wait. This is a video by a company. You've all probably seen these trucks around, Cintas. They're a company that puts down everything from mats at the entryway of a business to uniforms to who knows, all things that have to do with the workforce, with somebody. This commercial, this is a TV commercial that's running right now, and I particularly love it, thanks to Stephanie Melvin, who pointed it out to me for the first time. But I'll tell you what, I think it fits with what we're talking about today. So think of the thing, are we ready? Are we ready for the business day? No.
You ready? Are you ready? I mean, really ready. Are you ready to open? Ready to compete?
Ready to welcome? Do you look buttoned up, prepared, professional?
You gotta be ready. The floors, mats, sponges, the uniforms, clean and crisp, ready to produce, ready for the unexpected.
Are you ready to prosper, to grow? Do your people have the right safety gear? Are they protected?
To be ready is to anticipate.
Prepared.
Emergency lights, alarm panel. Ready. Ready? Ready. Ready to safe.
You think your customers can't tell the difference between who's ready and who's not?
Of course they do. You have anticipated, prepared, figured out, focused. You're ready.
I'm ready. Ready is the hero. A hero. I'm ready.
Ready?
Ready. 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 Get to. You're ready.
Everybody wants a piece of ready.
Cintas. Ready for the workday.
Everybody wants a piece of ready. Love that.
How about that?
That goes perfect with this. You know what I was thinking about just now is every drawer that was opened was organized. Now, of course, I know they're shooting a commercial, but I think a tour to a fire department would be a great exercise for a salon staff. Everything's in a place. They are mentally ready, even when they don't know what they're going to get. We know what we're going to get, and we're not ready sometimes. They don't have any idea. An emergency room has no idea what they're going to encounter today. But they have to have everything ready, just in case.
Well, I think if you contrast, even sometimes in the better salons and the better businesses, if you're to contrast their concept of ready with the average salon's concept of ready, there's a big gap.
Sure.
There's a big gap. And so the question is, are you ready? Are we ready? And if we're not, what are we willing to do
Well, when she
to
says,
be ready?
don't kid yourself indirectly. Your
Yes.
customer knows
Guest knows.
who's ready and who's not, and who's ready to be ready. Oh, I love that. Open the doors. So open the doors, we're ready. I think that when we do that final inspection, say, let's go, let's get started, let's open the doors. It doesn't mean 4 people are still in the back congregating. It means that they're ready at the front to start greeting the guests. I think about what do Saturday mornings look like at the school, right?
Well, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about what does it feel like at Caper before we open the general admission doors? What does it feel like at Signature Gathering before we open the general admission doors? What's it felt like at Worldwide Hair Tour before we open up the doors?
It's anticipation of something special, right?
And shouldn't it be?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet sometimes in business, it's just we leave the door unlocked after we walk in. And I know that even as a Sam's Club customer, I've been in a Sam's Club. I've been in, believe it or not, one time, Home Depot. And
Brian, that's a little funny, isn't it?
the way that they get ready for their day, many times the first few customers are in the business, well, even Petco, because we drop our dog off for grooming. The store isn't open yet, but the grooming is open. And the store is having their little pre-meeting and their energizer to be ready to let guests in the door.
Every restaurant has usually what they call a pre-meal. And the pre-meal just gathers everyone and gets them focused. We're opening the doors. Is everyone ready? Here's your assignments. Any questions? Let's go. Taste this. Quality control. Pricing tonight. What we're featuring. what wine is going to be featured tonight. It's that pre-meal to start. It's saying, are we ready? Now, I can imagine at Disney World, what's that like when they're going to open the park, right?
Wow, yeah.
So every park is going to open at that time, and what does that grand opening of the day look like? Not a grand opening for the business, but the grand opening of the day.
So the challenge would be, how can you learn to celebrate your opening? How can you learn to celebrate every day? What's your opening ritual? And it should be a ritual. How do we do that?
How do we create that? So let's go into inspecting. When you inspect this, I think I'm one of the last ones to leave here at night. Lou and I are usually last. And when we take a look, I want to walk the business, especially on Friday nights, because there's usually a class being held on Sunday or Monday. And I want to give Trish that extra confidence of just making sure she's ready. Do I see anything? Do I tweak anything? I look at the way the stage is set up. I walk around and look at the guests that are going to be present in the room. I look at the check-in sheet, and I walk back into the catering area, and I just walk the business. I also look on the desk to see if anything should be thrown away. I look at the powder room to make sure that's ready, that the soap containers, the counters, that we have enough paper towels going into the event. I do that last walk. And it takes skillful eyes to do that, because some people can walk the business and not see anything wrong, right? You've got to be able to look for it, make sure the towels are rolled up right, that the product is all facing the right way. And you've got to be able to create what you call that scanning eye.
It's a scan. It is a quick scan. And that's something that over the years I've learned how to do in salons, to be able to quick scan a salon to know how busy is it, where are each of the services at in their progression, who's working, who isn't, what's going on at the service desk, what's going on in the waiting area, who don't I see in a salon, who's in the back room more than likely.
What's in the dispensary?
Absolutely.
Their usages.
And so it's just a very quick, but when you talk about, Terry, the way that you look at it, you're looking at it, they're skillful eyes, because you're looking at it not from an internal perspective, but from a how does it look externally? Mm-hmm. How's it going to look to our guest?
So when you look at it, it's amazing to me that we'll create skillful hands, but we forget to create skillful eyes as business leaders. And you have to almost have photographic eyes. And what I mean by that is, when you're at a photo shoot, and I've seen hairdressers at a photo shoot, what you see at a photo shoot, absolutely, I don't see. Every hair has to be in its place, that eyelash is raised up a little bit from the left. We get a little bit more powder on the nose. Every single thing is looked at. And that's the kind of eyes you have to look at. You're almost looking at it from photographic eyes. When you walk into the business and you walk into every room, I'm going to give you the wash house example. Is any cap dripping? Are all the caps going the same way? Are all the pumps facing the same way? Is any of the bottles need to be replaced because they don't look acceptable and fresh anymore? Are all the sinks clean and prepared? Are they all in resting position? That only takes a moment to walk through, but you've got to catch it if it's not right. The amount of stuff I throw away when I walk PSC, and I know staff says, I just had this here. Where is it? It's gone. I threw it out. You left it out. I threw it away. That glass of water that time, that's so funny to me. But you have to just pick up as you go. Even at home, I'm dumping your water out most of the time before you've even drank it, because you're just learning how to tidy up as you go, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of funny. But is it all positioned? And could your business be photographed right now, today? Someone walk in, the local newspaper comes in and they say, we want to take a couple shots. Oh, give us a minute. Why wasn't it ready to take a shot right now? I walked in yesterday to PSC and a white table was left out in the theater from from our meeting at month end. Why wasn't that put away? I don't know if anyone else saw that, but that's the first thing I saw, because when I walk into the business empty, it should look like this. And when it doesn't, that creates an alarm for me mentally. But why did someone not complete the task of getting the room back to resting position? They took it only to a certain point and then it was dropped. How often does that happen in salons?
They didn't understand it was a keeping room.
A keeping room.
That's where we keep the white
Okay,
table.
good
Yeah,
for you.
okay.
See, that's not funny at all. All right, so let's manage the excuses. So now I want to talk about this because I think that there's times that our staff will come to us with excuses on why we're not as successful as we are. So let's say we don't have enough parking. Take-home area is too small. We don't have enough shampoo chairs. We need an enclosed wash house. We don't have, we're not creating an experience. There's no exposed color bar. Front desk is too small. It's too crowded up there for the check-in and check-out. We need more assistance and too dark. Okay, so let's say that we as an owner listen to it and we check, and we make the changes and all these excuses are no longer relevant because we fix them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, even when we moved to this location 6 years ago, the excuses of communication was a big excuse because we were in separate buildings. We had a campus effect before we got here. And we had to correct and understand that we had to get rid of the excuses. We're not connected as a team. We're not under the same roof. We don't know what's going on at the store when our guests are here because it's across the parking lot. They don't know that the space and PSC are one and the same. All these excuses, right? So we moved to this location, check. Okay, all those excuses are gone. Guess what happens? New excuses are born, right?
Sure.
We don't do this, we don't do that. Our job is to manage the excuses. Now, not always can we just throw in 5 more shampoo chairs. That's it. But we have to listen and try to manage the excuses that affect the look of our business, because an excuse can get in the way.
An excuse is a form of complaint.
Well, it's a distraction.
That's a speed bump.
And so what do? How many words are we going to use?
Many as we can think of.
Speed bump, distraction, excuse. But it's things that we want to spend time talking about versus what we can do versus what we can't. I think that's one of the greatest gifts you have, is what can we do in this situation versus what we can't do. Did you just?
I'm not.
So let's talk about.
I'm embracing it.
Let's talk about TJ Maxx, because
I can't help you here.
I know, but I'm a fan. And why am I a fan? And it's not about the look.
Think.
All right? It's not the look. It's not the feel of feeling so relaxed and wonderful and this is perfect. It's not the experience, because the experience that I create at TJ Maxx isn't created by the staff. It's created by me, for me. It's not the flow, you know, and it's not the people. What is it?
Is it the credit card?
Well, no, it's all about the price, the find, and the hunt. All right? So I find a way, I like it because it's about the price. So I will forego the standards of what full price would mandate. My point on this is TJ Maxx can get away with a lot because it's the price, the find, and the hunt. But if it is Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom or Abercrombie, you're not going to be as forgiving because the price is at full price. So if I go back a slide, the look, the feel, the experience, the flow, the people, when you pay full price, it's got to be all those things.
Yeah, there's a difference.
There is a huge difference between the two. So what I'm saying is, your salon full price, and if it is full price, then you've got to have all those things in place, because the guest will not forgive you. Now, if you want to go in and say we're doing $10 haircuts, the find and the hunt, and we're going to have specials that you need to find on your own in our take-home area that are going to be second to none, They'll excuse the dust bunnies. They'll excuse the staff's lack of product knowledge. They'll excuse the way that the business is laid out. They're not going to excuse that at full price, and you have to make a decision. What are we? Right? And once you make that decision, you don't apologize for it. Ritz-Carlton doesn't apologize for their pricing. They focus all their energy on the experience, and they know they're going after the guest that's going to mandate that from them. Good?
Well, it's a difference between knowing who your market segment is and trying to be all things to all people. And I don't think that a high-end salon is really trying to be all things to all people. So you've chosen a specialized market. Now, we on this series, we have all different types of salons. So if that is your market, to be all things to all people, then you've got a different user experience that you're going to plan. All of these same things apply, but they apply uniquely to the guest you want to serve in your business. That's what has to change. So, and then I think you need to compare. You know, I don't care if you're going at the low end of the price scale. That may be the segment of market you're choosing. How do you compare to other salons, other service providers who cater to that market, to cater to the market that you're catering to, and are you best in class? I think that's the other thing that comes up. What's your commitment to being best in class, regardless of what that class is, regardless of whether you're low market, mid market, high market, and again, that only refers to price. It doesn't mean anything about how we feel. All have a place, all serve a different customer base. Remember, to me, the big indictment that we have as an industry is that less than 50% of the people who could go to a salon actually do. Slightly less than 50%. So when you're looking at your salon, you're looking around and saying, we could be busier, we're not fully scheduled. You have to say, absolutely, you know for certain that there's room. There's room for you in a market. So if the guest isn't coming in, then look backwards to this and say, how have we defined our user experience? How have we defined what the guest is entitled to every single visit in our salon? What things need to be in place? Where do we need to be more intentional? Where do we need to train better these things? Because it's not any one thing that makes the big difference. Again, John Paul says all the time that successful people do all the things that unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. And so what things right now, maybe as a staff, maybe as a business, are you not willing to do or not currently doing that if you did would bring a big return? Start looking at where is your return on effort? Where's your return on energy? And manage that. Manage it with an expectation that the return's going to be huge, that the return's going to be X.
When you think about the look of the business, try to create a theme. One of the things that we've gone to at PSC, and I'm excited about it, is our calendar is going to become our image for the year. So when Trish chose this cover for our calendar this year, we then incorporated it into our business cards, and we incorporated it into a campaign that we're doing called The Box. And then also, if there is a notation of a day closed at PSC, like 4th of July or something, before it would have flags on it and different font. And our corporate font is called Optima. That's the font we use. So if anyone at PSC writes a letter or an email, they use our font. Our invoices are Optima font. Everything is Optima font. So try to be consistent in a look that your customer can get accustomed to. So even the message you put on the front door, we're observing the 4th of July, thank you, it should be your image that you're consistent with your business. And that's not easy. Your image is in more places than you think. So you've got to make sure that you're catching that. There's times I think, wow, I didn't even realize it. I'm looking at this, Brian, this font transferred over. I don't think Optima came over. Isn't that weird how it jumped?
That should be Optima.
Doesn't look right to you?
No, it doesn't look right to me. So when you find it, it can happen subtly, and you've got to be able to be committed to catching it. The guest is looking for consistency. And even on your Facebook page and social media, your image should be consistent, almost have a theme for, and maybe it's only a year, and then we change and go to a new theme next year like we're trying to do at PSC. This becomes our creation, and our guests will get used to seeing that image from us all year long. And then when we release the new image, it's going to be kind of a celebration of what's our image for 2018, right? I like that. I think that, can you take photos every day of your business, whether it's your staff, your color bar, your wash house? Are we photo ready? And that's the look. I mean, I think about excuse me, how we have to protect our image here. And I know that there's times I walk around, and I'm sure the staff gets sick of me doing it, but I want to say, are we creating something new for the guest to see? And we can usually do that in the space better than anything. Is how do we look, and how do we create energy for them? We want them to be inspired when they walk in the door. We want every square footage excuse me, to represent education. So we need to protect that every day by thinking of ideas that will do that for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if we put a sign in the powder room, that sign has to be with this image on it for 2017. So it could list our future education, it could be things that we're thinking about, it could be just find us on social media, but it has to be that image. Okay, what are we thinking about? I love this topic. Choppy, smooth training. I remember one time I was training a waitress, and she walked to the table and her coffee cup was shaking, and I said, you can't carry a cup on a saucer because it looks like the customer's going to wear it. So we put her cup on the tray and her saucer on the tray. We had to do that. Are you looking for something?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I was trying to teach her, the look is also how we present ourselves. For example, how do we give a guest their product after they've made purchases from us? How do we escort a guest back? How do we drape the towel? That's all becomes our look and our way. How do we drape the towel from the wash house to the chair? How do we place the cape on? That all is part of our look.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking about?
Well,
And we can open up for questions too.
yes. Okay. All right. So we were recently, I think we mentioned this last time, but about a month ago right now, we had the opportunity to speak at the Visible Changes conference in Houston, Texas.
It was on the bucket list.
It was such an incredible experience. But I was reminded of something that I've carried in my wallet for 26, 27 or so years. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but you can kind of see that it's tattered and torn, it's laminated, but this is something that's been there. And I'm going to read it to you, but the thing that's most important is, what are the things that center you as a leader? What are the things that center you as a hairdresser? How are you working hard to put in the right things in your mind? One of the things that I learned, I was blessed at a very young age to be around people like Douglas A. Cox, who was the first motivational speaker that I became. I got to know him. I got to be a friend of his, and we stayed in touch all these years. And he taught me so much. And then Zig Ziglar had a huge influence on my life. And of course then John Paul and Paul and John McCormick and so many people. Today it's, I'm glad to be a student of John Gordon and Andy Andrews and a friend of mine that's a speaker in the industry, Paul DeGrigley. So I'm name dropping, but I'm name dropping because I've been on a pursuit of who to read, who to listen to, and who to study under. And I want to continue to challenge you in this audience to find those people, find those mediums to study under. And audible.com is a great place, but there's so much. I'm constantly clipping photos from social media that I keep in my photo library of sayings and posters and things that matter. So I want to read this to you, and because I know that sometimes when we talk about a topic, you can get to a point where maybe you feel like, oh my God, will we ever be able to do all of this? Will we ever be able to accomplish and really be the salon or the hairdresser that I dreamed about? And I want you to know that clearly you can. And so this is something that I've carried and read from time to time. It's called a winner's creed. And it goes like this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win, but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world we find success begins with a person's will. It's all in the state of mind. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster hand, but sooner or later, the person who wins is the one who thinks, I can. And I hope that offers something to all of you, and I hope it offers you the hope and the energy and the strength to develop the way you think. All of the things that right now frustrate you, all of the things that are in business are things that you're either going to internalize and take on and let them defeat you, or you're going to be in a situation where you know you're doing exactly what you were meant to do, and you're doing it with exactly who you were meant to do it with, and you can. And so thank you so much for continuing to be a part of this. And I know I'm sure have some things to say.
How do you finish on something like that? Of course, I'm thinking about that now. What are we working on? What is the look that we're working on right now at PSC or even at our schools? Is we're constantly working on creating a new version of ourselves, the new look, the new look, the new look, the new look that's coming down the pike. I mean, I think as a leader, you're charged with the responsibility of creating a new version of yourself over and over again, and a new version of your team. And sometimes they can't see the growth that the team has had as much as you can. We're fighting some generation enemies right now, different ways of thinking, different willingnesses to be part of something special. It's not as easy as it used to be. And speaking of being down at Visible Changes, John always surrounds you by people he wants you to learn from. And so we went to lunch with Christine, and Christine, we've known Christine and been a fan of hers. She's a top level hairdresser at Visible Changes. I believe her haircuts start at $70, and they're departmentalized, so she's only a cutter. And she also offers, she can do extensions and treatments, I believe. That's her menu options. Am I right on that?
I think.
Is there any styling
so.
they can do too? So we were talking, and she had just come off stage being recognized the night before for doing $386,000 behind the chair for that year. And I said, what's your goal this year? And she said, 400. I'll hit 400 easily. And I said, wow, how many hours do you work a week? And she said, 28. She goes, well, I used to work full time when I was producing $600,000 a year behind the chair. I was working 40 hours a week, but now I'm just doing 28. And now it's 400,000. And so let me give you an example of the difference between me and the new coming in. And she said, there's a word that I'm witnessing, and it's laziness, or it could be lack of belief in themselves. So that kind of goes with the winner's creed.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, I came in on a Sunday, scheduled for 4 hours to do some extensions, and the young lady didn't show. Now, most people in that case, if they arrived at noon and were going to leave at 4, and they arrived at the salon at noon, they were told, we tried to get a hold of you, your guest had to cancel for unforeseen circumstances. What would most people do? And I said, most people probably would turn around and go home. She said, you're right. So I went up to the front and I said, throw me on the schedule. I'm here anyway. Let me see what I can produce. And they said, well, she said, I'll take walk-ins or anything. She said, well, walk-ins aren't going to want to pay your price. She goes, I don't care what price they come in at. I'll have a ball with them and make a game within the game. So she went in for 4 hours, and in those 4 hours, she did $1,600 in services. It's a game within a game. It's a mental commitment to see what you can do with the talent that you have. And she said, no, it wasn't a $2,400 day that the extensions were to be, but I turned those 4 hours into $1,600. I'm blown away by that mentality. I'd love to have her as a guest sometime to feature her. Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
How are we doing on time? Anything for us, anyone? We've got 3 minutes left. This is a great topic, I think.
All right. Well, once again, I'm going to close with the last line of this, and it says, but sooner or later, the person who wins is the one who thinks I can. Be that person today. Go out and think you can, and then make it happen.
Whoops. Have a terrific month, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.